So for the past couple of years, we have witnessed something very strange happening within the gaming industry. It feels as if the gaming industry is just falling apart, like it's bursting at the seams, like the entire thing is being held up together by duct tape and glue. A house of cards, if you will. We have seen baffling studio closures like Sony shutting down Bluepoint studios, entire projects and multiple games getting cancelled, like what happened at Ubisoft. And when you take a step back and you look at this whole fiasco or affair, it seems as if we are headed towards a gaming Armageddon. A gaming judgment day, if you will. The end of gaming as we know it. But what if I told you that isn't entirely true? That the opposite might actually be what's happening beneath the surface here. Because later I am going to reveal something extremely strange about the video game industry. Something that already happened once before in 1983. You see, in today's world, we are dealing with enormous projects. We're talking crazy Hollywood blockbuster budgets, massive dev teams, extremely long dev cycles stretching into the 6-7 years even. And when all those factors come together, they create a very frightening situation, a haunting situation, if you will, because failure no longer becomes just a bad launch. In other words, it becomes a financial disaster. We've already seen this in real time. Games like Concord, with massive dev teams and massive amounts of investments in them. And yet, the whole thing collapsed almost immediately after its release. And the thing is, when you get to a point where failure becomes too expensive, that's when systems become what I call fragile. And how does fragility manifest itself in the system? Well, you get less experimentation, less creativity, less boldness. Companies start playing it safe, and you see this thing everywhere. You have companies that are now chasing trends like live service scenarios and games, more sequels, more remakes. There is an influx of sequels and remakes compared to new IP. Your Last of Us 2. How many times did Last of Us 2 get remastered? And Last of Us 1. You see my point? These are the symptoms of fragility within the system, within the industry. We have studios being terrified, petrified of making the wrong moves. I mean, it's almost like, think of your immune system, right? Can you imagine if your immune system never had to work a day in its life? Do you honestly think that you would be able to survive something as the common cold? Absolutely not. Your first cough would send you to an early grave. The same thing is happening with gaming studios. But we also have what we call indie developers, and they are almost the polar opposite of AAA studios. These guys live in opposite land, where AAA studios are extremely inflexible and are afraid to fail. Indie devs are allowed to fail. Failure teaches them, it makes them stronger. They're allowed to experiment, to take risks, and to grow even more bolder. And that's why they survive. You have games like Hollow Knight Silksong, you have Hades, Disco Elysium, Expedition 33, all made by small studios that were willing to experiment, and they end up shaping the industry. Now, a question that you might be having is, if this system is so fragile, like you say, then why does the industry keep injecting billions into it? Doesn't seem to make much sense. Well, you see, the answer to that question is very simple. The upside to doing so is extraordinarily enormous. You see, when a big AAA game succeeds, it doesn't just print or make money. It can make billions in revenue. Take games like Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5 has gone on to generate insane margins for Rockstar. Crazy amounts of money that have been made just from GTA 5 and GTA Online. So when companies see that, it's too good to pass up. That's why they will scramble to make the next Fortnite or the next GTA Online game, because their thinking is similar to how you think when you're playing a Souls game, right? No matter how many times the boss defeats you or how many times you lose to the boss, you only need to win one time for you to clear that stage. You only need to beat the boss once. So it's almost the same kind of logic that's operating here for gaming studios and companies. They will burn their entire portfolios of single-player driven games in pursuit of live service games. And when the reward is that big, companies are willing to gamble everything. So you see, now when you look at the gaming industry through that lens, their strange choices no longer seem strange anymore. Games being cancelled, studios shutting down. At first glance, it looks like chaos, but upon closer inspection, it looks like correction. A perfect way to encapsulate this line of thinking, one of my favorite movies, The Matrix, especially Matrix Revolutions. In that movie, there's one of the best killer lines, personally for me, in the entire movie. And I have grown to appreciate it even more, especially when you've seen the entire movie. And it's this moment right here.
And you are all that stands in his way.
Smith.
Very soon, he's going to have the power to destroy this world, but I believe he won't stop there. He can't. He won't stop until there's nothing left at all.
What is he?
He is you. Your opposite, your negative. The result of the equation trying to balance itself out.
In this moment right now, it's almost as if it perfectly encapsulates what's almost happening in the gaming industry. The system that we have is desperately trying to balance itself out one way or another. We have an influx of live service games flooding the market, and when that happens, players suddenly gravitate towards single-player experiences again. When AAA studios become bloated and risk-averse, we have the system introducing indie developers to balance things out again. And mind you, this won't even be the first time the gaming industry has actually gone through something like this. Because, take for example, the famous video game crash of 1983. Back then, the market became flooded with low-quality, rushed games. And one of the most infamous examples was Atari's E.T. Extraterrestrial. Now, I'm not exactly quite sure on the timeline, but I believe that these guys were given approximately 6 weeks to make the game and ship it. Don't quote me on that, but it's something like that. Either it was E.T. Extraterrestrial or it was Pac-Man. Somewhere between those two. And that resulted in the crash of the video game industry back in 1983. Now, I'm not saying that it was because of Atari or Pac-Man or E.T. that was the result. There are other factors in play, but the heart of it, the heart of the story is the fact that the market was flooded with games that were low quality, that were broken, and all that stuff. It contributed towards that downfall. And as a result, the stores stopped selling games, companies went bankrupt, the entire market essentially collapsed. And most importantly, many people believed, or should I say many analysts believed, the video game industry was finished. Yet somehow, gaming returned even stronger than ever, because sometimes destruction is the only thing that can restore balance. So perhaps the real question here isn't, is gaming dying? Is gaming collapsing? Is it on its last legs? But rather, has the AAA gaming industry or model simply become too big to fail? And if that's true, then what we're witnessing right now may not necessarily be the end of the gaming industry as we know it. It may simply be the system cutting away parts of its own fragility. Because sometimes the difference between collapse and survival simply comes down to what you are prepared to sacrifice in order to keep surviving or to keep living. Kind of like Crisis 3, Prophet sacrificing parts and pieces of himself in order to become the best soldier. And if that's exactly what we're seeing today, then the chaos in the gaming industry might not necessarily be the end. Perhaps it's simply the beginning of the next evolution.